In this video, we're going to talk about the box model, and this is how web pages actually kind of arrange and render all of our HTML elements. So first, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the box model. And this is, understandably, a box. And you might have seen this when you inspect elements. But there's an innermost box that has the content. This is what you can think of as the actual stuff that you've got, so the text. So the innermost box, if this was on a web page of the text, the content box would be just at the very, very edge of the text. So just like this to the very edge. So it's as tight as you possibly can get to the content. If it's a picture that you've got embedded, it's right at the edge of the picture. Outside of the content, you've got what we call padding. And this is extra space that's still part of the box. And this would be like if you had a background color, this would also be part of the background, is the padding. Then you've got a border, which is kind of usually going to be just a line, maybe kind of a thick line, but you've got a border. And then outside of the border, you finally have what we call the margin. And this is how close or far apart other boxes are. So other boxes won't kind of encroach on this margin, so they don't sit right next to each other. Unless you set the margins to 0, then you might have two boxes right next to each other. So if we had some text, like I said, the content is right just what's the thing that normally displays. Padding would be some space around it that if you colored the box in, you'd see some like a colored border around it. Border is if you had kind of line around the outside of that. And then margin is how much space the HTML will leave around the box before it puts other boxes in place. The characteristics that we can change about the box model, because if we go back, we can change all of these things and some other things as well. So first, height and width will set the size. So you can set how big or small you want that content area to be. For the border, you can set the thickness. You can set the style. So dotted, dashed, solid, etc. And you can set the color. So that border, you can say like a real thick dashed blue line. That would work. Obviously with thickness we'll need to be more specific than really thick, but you get the general idea here. Padding will add extra space inside of this border. Margin will add extra space outside of the border. And lastly, we've got overflow, which will define what should happen when the content doesn't fit. So if I define a really tiny box, if I define my height and width as really tiny, but I have this massive paragraph that I'm trying to fit in there, overflow defines how that should happen. So just to pop back real quick, content is the stuff that actually generally shows up on the web page. Padding is how far away the border should be. The border is what kind of outlines the edge of the box, and the margin is how much space should be around the box before you put other boxes. And so, for example, this content might be a paragraph. You might have very little padding because you'll want the next paragraph to be kind of right below it. As you play with this, as you look at things on websites, you'll notice kind of where this comes into play, and you'll get a better feel for what each of these terms means. If you have any questions, as always, please ask.